Hello, I'm Tam, the TamBoTC channel. I'm just in the middle of playing Fortnite. I didn't know how to approach this video. I know that I wanted to make it. So there's a YouTuber called That Sexy Nerd made a video reacting to the Justice League. And while I like his points and can see his points of view, though I'm personally not the biggest fan of that movie, I do feel like that he did approach the perspective of his opinions and stuff kind of aggressively and almost in a manner where it's like almost saying or not clarified enough where it feels like he's saying, boom, I'm right, you're wrong, almost. It kind of feels that way with the aggressive nature of the way he approaches it, and especially with one part that I feel is really flawed and simplified a little too much, which is the part where it gets to the very end and he's like, now you know why people like the Man of Steel and stuff. I can't remember the exact wordage he gave, but he was basically like, it's not your dad's Superman or whatever. It's not supposed to be. Yes, but you're simplifying it too much. I have seen, as well as I'm sure many other people have seen, so many different Supermen over the years, and even in our time, whether it be in the comic books or the movies. And there are so many different interpretations of Superman. That is not the problem. There are other reasons, and I feel like that did not tackle it, yet the way he approached and said it is almost like he thought he tackled every criticism in the world about Man of Steel in that one sentence that he made. And that's not it. I'm sure he would have more, definitely. There's no doubt about it. I just think that leaving it off like that way is not right. And I'm not going to bother with a comment to his freaking channel or anything saying similar things about that. But because that never works and that never gets anywhere anyways. Somebody's coming up on me. But I feel like people should be allowed to have the opinions they do. People have different perspectives on Superman and reasons why they don't like the Man of Steel. They can either have the same ones or different ones, depending on what they may be. It doesn't mean that immediately... Oh, now there's somebody behind me. That doesn't mean that immediately gets rid of all the criticisms, though. People will still have criticisms, and matter of fact, most of the criticisms might not even be attached to simplifying to it's a different Superman. No. It can be a different interpretation of Superman, but we have seen many, and people have still had criticisms or things that they do like about the different interpretations of Supermans. But I think the other thing you have to think about is take, for example, the MCU or the Halo show that came out. For the time, those were the biggest things to represent those forms of media. And they were sometimes even the only thing to represent those forms of media in the media they were put into. And there's a lot going on around me. And people were thinking that when Zack Snyder was approaching this version of them doing like the MCU's thing and creating a world, they thought they were going to do, faithful versions of the characters. Instead, they went in a different direction, and people didn't really like it. There were people who did, but there were people who didn't. It was a mixed film, once again, like Last of Us and Last Jedi, which are also very divisive films. Where the frick are all these guys? I hate not being able to find out where these guys are. I just saw one. gosh, I'm freaking surrounded by dudes. Oh, yep. God damn. Goku killed Superman. Hey, look, you won for once. A score death battle. No. But yeah, like, people can still have the same opinions. Just because you simplify that, even if it's probably not looked at that way, just because you use that to say, hey, this is why people are wrong, not only that, people can still have the same criticisms or different ones. And there are many examples, once again, like different Supermans or different opinions people have had around those different Supermans. So, yeah. And yes, we have certain versions we look at of Supermans, but most of my problems when like, if you were asked me personally, for example, my problems is Zack Snyder's directing and writing is too pretentious to enjoy it, and I get a bad vibe watching a lot of his stuff. And it feels like a movie that thinks it's deeper than it actually is, and thinks that, and I feel like, sadly, people like Angry Joe and such think in a similar vein, like that they must defend this crap because they think there's something deeper there, when it just feels super pretentious and full of itself. And it's really hard to watch when a film does that. There's cool action, but that cool action barely lasts, and you gotta get through a slog of stuff before you get to that cool action. And even that cool action has little nitpicks and other crap going on that I hate. I keep finding things wrong every time I think of the Zod scene, and just everything around killing most of the Kryptonians in general. They can just let some of them survive, or like somehow convince one or two of them to be heroes or whatever. But I mean, maybe they're brainwashed. I also found out weird that Superman was able to just simply snap his neck when they take blows that would break their ribs and crap. Because I feel like that's something that a human would have died to, and I feel like somebody's gonna see something deep with that. Yes, exactly. See, that... I don't know. There's so many things people dig. I feel like people dig too deep with that, and of course the other side digs too deep too. I also found a lot of the actors don't fit the parts, in my personal opinion, and not because they're portraying different interpretations. They were just boring. I'm not a big fan of Kevin Costner in the first place, and he was just kind of there. And he had a dumbass death scene. And even the actress playing frickin' Lois Lane felt generic. She was just a woman. I don't even know what her personality was. And it's ironic because I also don't care about frickin' Russell Crowe either, and I don't see him as Superman's father, Jor-El. I don't know, like, but I can potentially see Henry Cavill working. It's just, I don't think the directing and writing here and the way they utilize the visuals and such work. I feel like, too, he dismisses a lot of the previous stuff that Nostalgia Critic said when he was talking about the Justice League's Zack Snyder movie. And I know he's approached those in different ways, but he hasn't really given too much more clarification on that stuff. But yeah, most of mine it's pretentious, it's hard to watch, and I have a lot of problems with the way they directed and righted its direction. It has nothing to do with a different interpretation of Superman, and even if it was a different interpretation, I am allowed to feel the way, just as you are allowed to feel the way. You can like that Superman, I can freaking hate that Superman. why can't people just leave it at that? And as long as you have good constructive criticisms or opinions and stuff without being a harassing asshole, I've seen plenty of that, then that's good. It is great for discussion and such, but I feel like to simplify it to that is not enough, and that it is almost kind of ironically egotistical itself in a way. Not nearly to the same extent Zack Snyder is, though, because he's got a big movie that makes tons of money that is just that in a nutshell. Frickin' ego everywhere. He's like one of the most pretentious directors, in my opinion. He makes good stuff here and there, but not nearly as much as I would like. There's stuff that I can't stand of his, from Superman v Batman to Sucker Punch. It's just like, nah. And then there's even with his good stuff, like Watchmen and stuff, or at least okay stuff, has problems too, where it's like that Watchmen, you could argue it being exactly the same off of the pages of the book is cool, but it also feels kind of, in a way, weirdly lazy, even though it's not, because there's still a lot of hard work that goes there. It's weirdly lazy in the same, almost a similar sense as like the Disney remakes, because those aren't lazy at all either, and there's a lot of hard work put there, but they're just basically retelling the same story and maybe making changes that are even more dumb than the original source material that it derived from. So it's not nearly that bad, though. I would rather watch Watchmen, ironically using watch multiple times, more than I would ever touch a freaking Disney remake. I just have too many, like, Disney remakes are just too cringe for me, and I have a hard time trying to get through them, honestly. Once again, it has nothing to do with their new interpretations. They really aren't. They honestly don't do enough new. But nonetheless, like, if you enjoy those or Man of Steel or whatever, you enjoy them, but don't be an opinionated prick about it, to put it lightly, ironically. And I feel like, sadly, with people like Angry Joe and stuff, it kind of reminds me of my uncle who believes in flat Earth, trying to shove their opinion and belief of that down your goddamn throat. Another ironic, symbolic way of putting it. Because it's like, ironically, people hate other things for that same reason, yet here it is with Man of Steel. It feels like people are doing the same thing, shoving and cramming this down your throat, and it's not the only thing that it's been done with, but it's definitely one of the most annoying I've come across that it's been done with. That's just my personal thoughts and opinions. I didn't know how else to approach it. I didn't know how to approach this video in general. That's kind of what I can give. Do definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. If there's any interesting perspectives here that you agree with or disagree with, whatever it may be. As long as the conversation is something criticizing or in the opinion vein of not being a dickhead and throwing around slurs and swears and all that crap, because I've seen plenty of that, sadly. And I have to clarify that, sadly, multiple times. So, once again, and think to yourself, there are many ways you can word and approach wording something without it coming across the wrong way or a worse way, such as using it as a platform to be an asshole or whatever. And I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying anybody else that does that. But yeah, I had a hard time trying to think on this, honestly, and how I approached it. But I do feel like simplifying that was, yeah, a bit arrogant, maybe. I don't know. But you have an awesome day or night, nonetheless, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.